What is up, everybody, and welcome to a brand new video from a Russian citizen, a Russian-born citizen, about the news that are happening inside of Russia. Now, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep up with the updates, and let's get going with the video. So, a lot of people are asking me in the comment section below, how do people decide to go and fight with Ukraine? You know, the ordinary Russian civilians. What is inside of their head when they end up signing a contract with the Ministry of Defense of Russia to go and fight in Ukraine? That is actually a very good question, and I have a very good example of probably the stupidest decision ever made. Meet Stanislav.
How did you end up in the war? I signed a contract with Ministry of Defense. Why did you decide to sign a contract? Tell us. I had a bet with a friend. Will they take me if I sign a contract or not? But they took me. And if they didn't take you, what would you win in this bet? A bottle of cognac. But now you think about it, it wasn't worth it. This bet was not worth. Why wasn't it worth? I ended up having no hands. I'm disabled.
I gotta tell you one thing. Stanislav's motto is stupidity and courage. The stupidity and courage is the worst thing that guy could have had, because having a bet with one of your friends to go into a front line where in the best case you'd get disabled like Stanislav did, but that is just crazy. You know what? I have a feeling that Stanislav's friend was actually working for the Ministry of Defense, and he already knew that the guy is going to be taken in. So he got taken in, and Stanislav's friend probably made a bit of money from him because he gave out one of the people to go and fight for the Russian side. Now let's get to another topic, which is also really interesting. If you guys remember, Ukraine had an incursion into Kursk region, which they are holding a part of it under their own control. And obviously a lot of Russian citizens, when the warfare began, they have run away from their homes somewhere into Russia, away from the battle zone. So how much did Russia allocate to help the refugees from Kursk? 19,723 US dollars. Obviously, I converted it from the Russian number, but if you want to know the Russian number, it's 1.8 billion Russian rubles. Now, the thing is, that might sound like a fair amount of money, but in reality, it's not. Instead of Vladimir Putin helping out his own citizens who ran away from their homes to not be in the middle of a battlefield, Russia allocated $64 million to Roskomnadzor to prevent the use of VPNs and to slow them down by 96%, which will make VPNs practically unusable, so the Russian citizens are not going to be able to access the needed information that is coming out from the outside world. So they've invested 64 million to create an iron curtain for the internet inside of Russia. The thing is, I think it should have not have happened. They should have spent $64 million in helping the refugees from Kursk rather than spending it on blocking the free speech internet that we guys take for granted because we are outside of Russia. So we're able to Google whatever we want. We're able to speak out about whatever we want. And in most cases, if you're a US citizen, an English citizen, whatever from Europe, you will not have any consequences. Meanwhile, I myself, a Russian-born, a Russian citizen, will have consequences as long as I hold a Russian passport. And coming to another topic about me holding a Russian passport, I gotta tell you one thing, guys. It is very hard for me to travel around anywhere. It's quite easy for me to stay in different Asian countries that are quite friendly to Russia, but still I'm away from Russia, which I'm thankful for. The thing is, it's very hard for me to get any European visa and any US visas, and that is unfair. And you might be thinking, how is that unfair, Ivan? Well, it's unfair because Kristina Potapchik is actually a very big propagandist in Russia. Now, when you Google her, you might not see any propaganda coming out of her mouth, but she has a network of Telegram channels which she pays off for anything that she wants to be said on them. So the government can ask her, get those and those channels to say what we want, we'll pay you this much money. And then she takes her cut and pays those Telegram channels. So a lot of Telegram channels that we might think in Russia are not Z, most likely are Z in many ways. If you wave enough money, they become Z very quickly. But what I wanted to say is, I don't follow her, but I was looking at some interesting news and she has not posted anything on her Instagram, surprisingly enough. Meanwhile, she had an entire trip to Europe. But we know that she was in Europe because her friend posted everything. They've been to the Italian island of Sardinia, Venice, and Paris, but those propagandists are not under European sanctions. I really feel that it's unfair that people who work with the current Kremlin regime are able to travel to a lot of European countries. Meanwhile, people like me are having a very, very hard time to do so. I think there should be some sort of a commission that sees everybody who works with the current Russian regime and puts them under sanctions. You might be wondering, how is she able to travel all around the place? Simple. Supposedly, she earns $100,000 a year with her company. The thing is, she actually owns a huge house in Spain for 600,000 euros. Well, that was the price when she bought it. Probably the value has went up. The question is, how did she buy it? And why is the European Commission that gives out sanctions are not holding a tight finger on her? Really, really interesting. You know, I find it really disappointing. Like I said, people like me who want to speak out, who want to live in a free country, start a new life, are having such troubles to do so. But the people who actually work with the Russian government are easily walking around the streets of Paris. A lot of politicians' children actually live in the United States. If you guys want me to make a video of all the politicians' children that are living in the States, you can write in the comment section below and I will definitely make a video about that, because meanwhile the politicians are saying that the US is the worst enemy of Russia and that Russia should nuke them, they probably don't mean it because their children are living there and they're not taking them back from the US. Is that because they realize that life in the US is way better than in Russia? That's some questions to ask. But obviously all of this information is not being spread out on Russian television, because then the Russian citizens are gonna realize that there's something wrong, or they will think that those politicians are actually the enemies of the state. So that is a little story about people who should have a hard time entering Europe instead of me and people like me. In my opinion anyways. I could be wrong, I could be right, but I just find it a bit unfair. Just a bit, like this much a bit. Now let's get to another story. A lot of people are interested at how the soldiers rotate in the Russian military when they're fighting with Ukraine. And that is a very interesting question, because the Russian government and the Russian propaganda tries to make the Russian military look superb and amazing. But from a lot of research that I have done, I realized that there must be something off with what the Russian state media tells us. And that is simple. When I started researching this topic, I started seeing a bunch of videos of soldiers somewhere in a forest with crutches running around the place. And I was like, why is there a person who's having a problem with his leg or his arm anywhere in a combat zone, because there's no point of them. If you think of it logically, I gotta tell you one thing, guys. I'm against the war 100%. I'm against the Russian attack on Ukraine 100%. I am for peace and I don't want anybody dying, but I'm just talking common sense here. If you have a military, you want to have soldiers that have fighting capabilities to run around the place and are very mobile. And I think that people with crutches are not going to be very mobile. And this only means one thing. If we're going to be seeing way more of those videos popping out right now, that only means one thing. There's probably going to be a mobilization, because I doubt that they want to have a whole army of people on crutches trying to fight, which they're kind of doing now. But this is Russia. This is what happens in Russia. And then let's check out another video. In May, Nikolai received a gunshot wound to his left foot and damaged nerves in one hand. After being discharged from the hospital, he walked on crutches and broke his other hand, as we see on the video right here. The crutches came apart in the tiles when the soldiers went to the toilet. Now Nikolai cannot open a bottle on his own and has difficulty getting dressed, since his hands do not function well. After contacting the military prosecutor's office, Nikolai was recalled from the combat zone, but then Nikolai was given a referral from the doctors. But now they're sending him back to the war zone inside of Ukraine, the way he looks like right now, but to the rear area. Nikolai wrote a report to his commander, but he did not accept it. The man is ready to undergo rehabilitation and then go to the front line, but he's not getting a leave from the military to actually get some treatment. So they're trying to send the guy back. So yeah, this is a story about this. Now, what can I say about this Nikolai guy? Obviously, he doesn't have a lot of sense in his head, since he is actually fighting for Russia against Ukraine, invading Ukraine. But the thing I'm trying to say here is the Russian military does not care about its soldiers. They just send them out. They don't want them to come back alive. They just use them as meat. What is a guy with crutches gonna do? This is just the biggest stupidity that I've seen in a very, very long time. Tell me, guys, what do you guys think about this in the comment section below? I hope you found this video informative. Tell me your thoughts about it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, press the like button, and I will see you guys next time.